Welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast. The number one show to bring you all things Club America and English.
Oh, what a strike! Club America!
Your hosts for today are Ivan Pineda, Cristian Rosendo, Alexis Juarez, and everyone's favorite cowboy, Dylan Jimenez. Go! Now let's hit the field and start the show. America!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Eagle Eye Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all things Lady Aguilas. We're going to be recapping the first ever loss under Harrington's new tenure, and then, of course, we're going to be looking ahead into what paints to be a really good matchup against Pachuca in the upcoming jornada. So we got plenty to talk about in this episode. And as always, joining me to talk about all things Lady Aguilas is our own America Femenil expert himself, Mr. AJ. AJ, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. I'm ready for today's episode about America Femenil because first angry episode of the season. So
I would just like to remind everyone that we're going to be exposing AJ for the bad juju that he is, as he was the reason why the ladies lost. And we'll get into that in just a second. But before we do, AJ, let's introduce our very special guest coming on yet again to talk about her expertise here on America Femenil and Liga MX Femenil in general. It is none other than Miss Amy Lopez. Amy, how are you?
Hey guys, happy to be on the pod again. Ivan, it's also important to remind everyone that it's also AJ's fault that we're running so late because he didn't set up stuff while you were.
Yes, definitely. While I was finishing eating, he could have gotten things started, and so
that's two
strikes. Apologize. That's two strikes from AJ.
Todo se les culpa de Alexis. Yeah.
There you go. Hashtag that right now, everyone. Todo es culpa de AJ. But excited for you to come on. We're excited to hear what you got to say about the loss against Toluca, and then of course the big game coming up against Pachuca, which paints, like I mentioned, to be a really fun game overall. So should be a good one.
Yeah, it should definitely be a good one. It's funny. I was recapping the week for Liga MX Femenil, and I saw that Atlas was on a good run, America was on a good run, and they both just had really bad past jornadas. Like this jornada was bad for both of them. But particularly for America, I think it's positively humbling in a way to have this game happen. I think last season, was just like, it was consistently like, I don't know if they're going to be good. I don't know if they're going to do great. Again, same thing as always, right? They have a good team. They need to formulate themselves, but it wouldn't be executed on the field. And I think we're starting to see that from the very beginning this time around, but traces of old America are going to be in there, even under Harrington's new system. And I think that you saw that against Toluca. You saw a lot of lack of proper marking. I mean, obviously there was that unfortunate goal, from the defense and stuff. But I think that it's good for them to have this game because they have been so solid to start the season. I mean, not like super solid, right? Because Santos also scored the first goal at the very start of the season. But it's good for them to have this moment because I think under Harrington, they actually do have a system. There's actually something there. There's actually, a formulation, proper placement of players and all that stuff that I think America collectively, if you go into this game and you see it, you see your mistakes, I think you push forward and you actually move in a positive way that I don't think we've seen from America Femenil in a very long time.
Definitely. And you know what, AJ, let's talk about those mistakes. Let's talk about what went wrong against Toluca Femenil. We came into this game maybe a little bit too overconfident, AJ. I think, what was your scoreline prediction?
I'm pretty sure I went with 2-0.
And I think I went even more adventurous and I said 3-0. So I mean that goes to show you that maybe we were feeling a little bit too up on cloud nine after seeing the ladies play the way that they have been. But what, in your eyes, what went wrong for this game, AJ? Because we started off on a good note. Things were looking well. I mean, sure, granted we weren't scoring, but we looked pretty decent. What went wrong for you?
Just not taking those opportunities. I feel like there was plenty of times throughout the entire match where we had clear opportunities for us to just give a through ball or a cross, and then someone would have been available up front, whether that be Kiana Palacios, and get herself a goal. Just didn't seem to be a case. And that final 10, it just seems to be like a tale of two halves situation that we've seen from the prior season from America Femenil. Just the final 10 minutes, we just seemed to crumble at that point. That defense, just because we scored the one goal from Dani Espinosa, everyone thought, okay, that's it. The game's secured. it's never secured until the referee blows the whistle and calls a game. So just from 10 minutes, we just did not look like ourselves, and we were seeing traces of last season from Guerreras America side being seen in this last 10 minutes, and it was just heartbreaking to see. Really, it was tough to let it sink into what just happened in the final 10 of the match against Toluca.
I mean, the most interesting to me for this game was how flat this team looked at times. You know, it felt like we had some identity going forward. It felt like we were starting to have a little bit more of a revolution within the midfield, and just everything just seemed off in this game. Like I spoke to you specifically, AJ. Kiana Palacios, I think, should have been off the pitch,
Uh-huh.
you know, way early in the second half. She just didn't seem to be clicking in that game. Ribeiro came in, and I think she definitely sparked something in this America side, which we needed. But unfortunately, Kiana Palacios wasn't able to do that for the first 45 minutes. And I think, it's just. I'm not gonna say it's entirely her fault, because I do think that there was a lack of support sometimes in the midfield, but it just seems like, again, this team has started to build that identity. They established a foundation. They were building upon that, and it just seemed like this game, it looked like we were taking 2 steps forward. Now we were 3 steps back, in a sense. Not literally, because we're still in a good position and it's only one game. It's not the most major of setbacks, but it feels like that after the season that we just had. I mean, I don't know if you concur with that, Amy.
Yeah, I think that there was something, and I didn't have a chance to catch the game live. I ended up watching it after the fact. But I do agree with AJ's sentiment. But I also see the positive in it, because honestly, I wrote it. I was talking to AJ, or I briefly said it. When I saw that Dani Espinosa was the first one to score the goal, that's a positive. I mean, she hasn't been herself, honestly, since that Liguilla match where she missed like 4 different times, and the PKs, right? There's been such a huge mental block for her, even throughout the entire last season. Like, that she's not the same player that she used to be. But you see her score that goal, and I joke about it sometimes online, but like, as a striker, just like as a player whose job it is to score goals, when she scored that goal, you saw how she felt. You saw how amazing she was. Like, I finally scored. And so I think that that's where I was like, okay, I can see the confidence. I can see where you go, given their trajectory this season, you go, okay, this is going to be a 3-0 victory. This is going to be a 2-0 victory. This is set to be a victory for America. It should be, no questions asked. And I think that that's where you get the mistakes that you saw on the defense. You're probably a little too confident offensively. And you're like, you're not necessarily saying like, why should I mark? But those goals that Toluca scores are very open chances, and that's not something that you can afford to do as America, or that's not something that you should allow teams to do as America, especially if you're going to have such a strong attacking side that you're starting to build with those players. Kiana, unfortunately, wasn't able to connect it, to click, but she's been such a vital signing this season for the team. And I just think that that's where you look at this game, hopefully, as an outlier, and you say, this is not going to happen again. This shouldn't happen again, because of how good you've been playing against maybe teams that you're expected to beat. And Toluca came into this not so great. They haven't been so good since, ironically enough, Malion got sent over to America. But they found something clicked for them. Something happened where they upped the momentum and said, you know what, they're not taking their chances. Okay, they only scored one. We can come back and do something. And the defense didn't. And that's where you go, okay, this should be an outlier, or, as we've seen in the last season, it could be the start of something bad. And you can only hope that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, and we just completely derailed after that equalizer. And you mentioned it, right? It's even the equalizer. You feel like
it's such a.
someone should have been there marking that
like,
far post.
Like, marking is just non-existent in that game. Like, if you look at every single goal, it's literally just. They took their chances. They properly capitalized on their chances. You left one person hanging. You left that. Not counting the own goal, right? You just left whatever person scores that goal open, and they take that chance and they score. Like, that's all. That's literally all it was. It was just open chances, time and time again.
Definitely. And you know what? Here's the thing that frustrated me the most. It wasn't the fact that we scored and then conceded too shortly afterwards. It was the kind of response after we concede the first goal that really kind of frustrated me, because we saw it against Santos, AJ. We conceded the first goal, but there was an ambition to go out there and get it back find another goal, and go and build
I don't
upon that.
necessarily agree with the Santos one though, because there's fight, but there's also a touch of luck in that game. Even as American Eagles, we gotta sit here and we gotta acknowledge the fact that that was the most generous PK given in the history of Liga MX Femenil.
Yeah, but we were due one, I would imagine. That's how I felt.
You were,
due.
you're definitely due a goal after that game. Like, no question. I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, we get the 3 points are allotted not because of that fight. It's more because of.
But what I'm alluding to is the fact that we go and we go look for it. We go look for the goal. We're not sitting back. We're not just kind of like passing the ball around. Like we had some creativity going, right? And yes, the penalty soft and all that stuff, and we get fortunate that against Santos. But this game against Toluca, AJ, as soon as this goal goes, it just seems that the team just derails at the moment. There isn't that same mentality of like, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna fight, we're gonna get another one. We still got plenty of time left. Like we're just tied. All we need is to find another goal. Let's go at it again. And that wasn't. It feels like everyone's head just went down after we conceded, and then the own goal happens, which two players that you would never thought would have been in the sentence of Jocelyn Orejel and Renata Mascherelli, make a mistake, and because of that, we concede an own goal. Like you never thought. Those are your mostly two of your most solid players on the pitch.
I think that's why you say like this is just like this is just going to be an outlier game, because you watch that. I mean, I think even Mascherelli and Jocelyn, who are, by the way, like super fantastic people, obviously. They're just like, there's just a sense of disconnect, and I think that's the theme of this game. Like it's just, it's not clicking, and I think you get that one right after the fact that they equalize, and it kind of just snowballs from there.
Yeah, no, just we were in some other place by the time when Dani scored. Like everyone was cheering for her, and then at that very moment we can see we're just like, okay, what do we do now? Like, they scored. Do we like do the thing where we score? Like, yes, that's what it's supposed to be. The own goal happened, and at that point, everyone just wondered how on earth did that happen. There was two different reactions from Joss and Renata Mascherelli. Mascherelli had the gases like, did that happen? And Joss just kept walking forward. I'm just like, you're not gonna respond. Like there was some miscommunication. We just disconnected in that final 10 minutes, and just I cannot afford to see something like that again. But we let this game slip out of our hands. When mentioned before, this is a game where I feel like we definitely should have won this, especially the chances given that we had for America.
Yeah, it definitely was scheduled to be 3 points, especially when we talk about the start of the season, AJ, how vital these 3 points would have been. But at the same time, I think Amy's right. This is kind of one of those off games where, you're just glad it happens this early on in the season and not later down the road when you're starting to look at the table a little bit more tighter. I think at this point we still have that wiggle room, and it's a good learning curve, right? We've always talked about how the defense always has this kind of lapse of concentration where they're just moments in the games where you're just like, why aren't you guys completely clicking, But unfortunately, this time it led to an own goal, which I don't know. Who do you put it more on, AJ? Do you put it more on Renata, or you put it more on Jocelyn?
I don't know, to be honest. Like if I could say both of them, it really should be, because she passed that ball. She passed that ball far away from Mascherelli, and at the same time, Mascherelli was call off position. So at that point, that's miscommunication right there. You'd expect for her to just get to it, but then at the moment you see the ball going right behind Mascherelli, I was like, oh, she's not running for that. She's laying that in. There's nothing she can do about it.
Yeah, there's nothing Mascherelli could do.
There's nothing she can do. It's just like to point at just like, I'm right here, but it happens.
It happens, and then of course we concede the third goal, and it was lights out at that moment, and so
we did concede. So yeah, no. Especially when I looked at the stats that Toluca only had 37% possession. They were smart on how they got their goals, and it showed. Any open something they saw in the box, they crossed it, took their chance, went right in. They were smart with how they took their chances against America.
Definitely, I think it's like it falls down to exactly what Amy said. Sometimes you just need a bit of luck, and I think unfortunately we didn't have it that day, but Toluca definitely did. So Uh, is there anything else that we can take away from this game? Anything else that you guys want to kind of highlight over? I mean, we talked a little bit about the misunfortunate things, but we talked about some of the positives that we can take away from this, like the Dani goal. We knew that she was in quite the drought. Anything else you guys want to really highlight against Toluca?
Um, hey, it's a learning experience. Every team's gonna have this at some point throughout the season. It's just the very beginning. This gives time for the player to just recollect themselves, go back to the drawing board, see what they did wrong, especially for Harrington. Gets to see what went wrong this match and learn how to fix those mistakes for the upcoming games of the season.
I am curious to see as to how he's gonna go about um, fixing the little mistakes that he saw out there. So that is one positive thing to see how our new manager is going to be going up against and facing against these little mistakes that his team is so prone to do, and if he can iron those details out, then we should all be in a good position. But let's talk about the elephant in the room for a little bit. I've been saying, nah, AJ jinxed us. Let's talk about a little bit about that. AJ, tell me why you came into this game so confident after the ladies put out their lineup and you said, and I quote, Toluca ain't ready for this heat.
We looked solid. We had a really good lineup. Quote that really the only one that had me scratching my head was Zairo Moreno as the player right behind Palacios when she's really originally a center mid. She's not center attacking mid. But other than that, I'm just like, we're good. And then sentences that precede unfortunate events occurred.
Yeah, I just want to put this on record, everyone, that I've had to talk to AJ about this already a couple of times, because every time he's come into a game thinking that we've won, America's always either drew or lost. And I hope that this has drilled in his head not to do it again, because if America loses any other game this season, AJ, everyone's gonna blame you.
Any other game? That's so
Any other game. That there it is.
so much pressure. So much pressure.
I'm kidding. I've been saying overconfidence is one hell of a drug, youngin.
It's true. It's true. You're still learning. It's a learning curve. See?
It's a learning. It's this whole week has been nothing but learning curves. Isn't that right, AJ?
Honestly, like this entire week myself, I've just been learning new things. I'm just like, it's good to know, but sometimes you just don't learn from the mistakes. And I'm a prime example right there. I'm overconfident, then yeah, reality hits you. You're just like, okay, maybe
Well, you know what? Let's hope realities hit the back line, because we need them to be a little bit more solid. Not to say that they haven't been, but there's, again, those lapses in concentration that have always worried me. But unfortunately, America gets their first L of the season, especially at home. I think that's what hurts a little bit more, because we were looking so well at the Azteca. But hey,
also, how cool is it that they're playing at the Azteca? It's
we've been talking about it regularly, and
I love
it.
I mean, especially like there was something. I mean, not to say that like Kiana's goals haven't been special, because they have. I mean, she's doing fantastic and stuff. But like Dani scoring that first goal, being so elated. I know they end up losing, and we've already talked about that. But just like the level of joy she felt in that moment when she scored, and to do it at the Azteca and having those people cheer, it's super cool. It's super cool to see it. It's super cool to see them. Just even I know it's broadcasted wherever, but just like seeing it and seeing the women's side played, in the exact same way kind of that the men have been super cool to see.
The only thing I have is, America, if you're listening to this, and I've said this 1,000 times, this broadcast is terrible. First of all, there was no commentator. At the end of the game, I don't know who said it, but there was this lady that came out and said, we'll be back next week, and hopefully, and we wish our commentator a speedy recovery or something. I don't know. Point is, there was no one talking throughout the broadcast. Those camera angles sometimes worry me. Especially when they zoom in too much. I'm just like, I don't see where we're going with this. Oh,
and you're talking about the through the internet ones, or you're talking about like the American?
I'm talking about the America ones.
I've never, so I don't watch those. So I have no idea.
Don't ever watch those. Is what you got to take away from this. Like I've said it before. Like America, if you need someone, anyone, me and AJ are more than available. We'll do it for free.
Actually, I think I watched one last season, and I think I had the same take, like, is nobody gonna say anything about
Yeah.
it?
The woman could
Probably
have said
would.
she was bringing statistics as well as she could just talk about during the match if like nothing interesting was happening at the very least. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
It's
So-
a learning curve, guys.
Well, this learning curve's been going on for like a year now, and
you
they
see,
haven't
even
learned
I don't
anything.
learn. I could just look up a bootleg stream from Mexico on through the NA.
Okay,
to
wait,
watch
no,
the
no, no.
game.
Let's. Is it better, worse, or around the same as the dudes that do like the like Atlas games? Or
Oh.
AJ's gonna have to answer that one because I'm not a big.
it's that tough
watch
to
on
decide.
YouTube.
Not
Peace
saying
and quiet.
it's
Peace
better
and
than
quiet.
saying the wrong thing. So
Peace and quiet. Peace and quiet. No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to deal with the camera angles, which might give me a bad case of vertigo at times, or just strain my eyes. But it's a learning process. I'll learn. I'll get accustomed to it.
Oh, and by the way, the signal sometimes goes off, and as a backup plan, what they do is they put on an America Cruz Azul final game.
I remember
For some
that.
reason.
Okay.
no way.
So like
I
I
have
don't
to
know
catch it now.
So I don't know what frustrated me more: us losing this game at Azteca, or the amount of times that the last year went off. I think it went off 3 times. And hey, what do you know? And Toluca scored 3 times by the time it was taken off air.
Conspiracy. You gotta figure this out.
Point is, America, if you're listening to this, we're more than willing to help, and trust me, we'll do it pro bono. That's all I'm saying. But all right then. Talked about that. Let's jump on into the next segment. Let's talk about Pachuca. This is going to be the toughest game yet on our calendar, and you two will tell me a little bit more as to why. But beforehand, I want to remind everyone that today's episode is brought to you guys by Footcult. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure you guys go check out footcult.com. They got some amazing gear, some amazing product. If you guys haven't done so already, check them out and use the discount code EEP at checkout to get 10% off. Again, discount code EEP at checkout to get 10% off. Again, thank you to Footcult for sponsoring today's episode. Alrighty then. Let's talk about the game that is America versus Pachuca. Pachuca versus America. The ladies will be going out to Hidalgo to go face off against 3 very star-studded forwards that Pachuca has. So we'll see how this defense, which again prone to those lapses of concentration, will have to do. And I'm curious to hear your guys' takes. So Amy, I'll let you go first. Coming into this game, how do you think America will fare off against, the attacks that Pachuca has right now?
I mean, I think right now the question is more about what Pachuca is going to do. There's just I still excuse them. I know some people are like, are we in panic mode with Pachuca? What's going on with them? I don't necessarily see it just yet, just because I feel like all 3 of their attacking options are still trying to understand each other. All talented players, by the way, right? Ocampo, Cuevas, and then Charlene, obviously. Still trying to find a rhythm. Like we're saying, it's very, very early in the season. I know that we're all very excited for the league to start, but it's still super early, and a lot of us are just getting off of that international feel. So a lot of us are barely paying attention right now. So, it's just barely starting. But I think a lot of it has to do with, I think a lot of what might happen to America is going to be decided by Pachuca, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing from Pachuca. And also, internally, Pachuca just had to say goodbye to Doña Is, which, total just curveball for everyone involved. So we'll definitely see what they do. We'll see. I thought that, for what it's worth, a lot of the players respected her, thought that she was assertive, but she had a sister. She had something going. She had a vision, and they were trying to do their best to try to make it work. So we'll definitely see if they keep that system, or now it's going to be under a different system, under a different coach. So I think that's going to be the biggest deterrent of like what America is actually able to do. Again, America is not without. Obviously, they have their own kind of aspect on the attacking side. I think that I said it in past podcasts for the Our Football Pod, I think with Kiana up there, it takes less pressure off of maybe a Dani or a Montserrat. And I think if she's able to get back to her ways, which she can, it was only 1 game, it's a blip. If they're able to find that system with each other, I think there's something dangerous there, because like we're saying, Pachuca isn't complete. While America had 1 bad game, Pachuca hasn't necessarily had a bad game, but they haven't had a great game. And I think that that's where America in their past matches where a win against Puebla and all that stuff, they have had good games and they have created that momentum. I think that's going to be it. It is going to be a tough game because I think both teams have something to prove. Pachuca more of a season long thing, and America more of a single game thing after this loss against Toluca. But I think it should be entertaining nonetheless.
Definitely, AJ. I'm looking at the standings right here. Two draws, one win, one loss for Pachuca. It's sitting in 11th place. So on paper, it looks like, oh, well, America's in fourth, right? Should be an easy game, but it never seems to be the case, especially against Pachuca. We've always had, quite the matches against them. Even when the beginning of this league started, right? They always used to be in our group, and we always used to have some pretty entertaining matches against them. How do you think Harrington's side is going to fare off against this Pachuca side?
Look, it's really just fixing those mistakes from last game. Just never turn that motor off. Just play till the full 90 minutes, really. Those opportunities that we've had in those Toluca games, just got to do the same thing against Pachuca, but this time be smart about the decisions that each player is making. I felt there are times where players definitely could have done the extra pass to give it off to another teammate, which would have opened a scoring opportunity for them. And I felt like I've seen that a lot during the Toluca game. So fix those mistakes, really, because so far of the season, what we're seeing, it's a lot of positives from this America Femenil side, especially under a new coach as Harrington. He's still experimenting, but he knows exactly what he wants out of each and every single one of these players that he has in his squad. So really against Pachuca, he's going to have to play against some of the league's best. Well, you have someone like Charlene Corral, a well-known player for the Mexico women's national team and in Mexican soccer. She's still trying to get herself accustomed to Mexico, but then when you have players like Viridiana Salazar, Lucero Cuevas, Monica Ocampo. You got lens in the game that have played time and time again in Mexico. So Harrington really, he's got to prepare himself for a Pachuca side that's very desperate to get themselves a win, and especially with the new coach on the belt now. They're not only going to be playing a 4-3-3. See what Pachuca's going to be bringing against America. But all I got to say, Harrington and America Femenil, give it your all. We'll leave that one bad game in the past and look forward to this Pachuca side and just give your all against the way of Hidalgo.
Definitely. Will be interesting. I mean, Pachuca's definitely could come out with everything that they got, especially because, like you mentioned, they're looking for that victory, that also desired victory. And we know how this league works, right? Whenever you put a team against America, they always put out 110% for some reason, even though they may not be having their best run of form. But hey, that's what America brings out in other teams. Let's talk a little bit about formation and possible lineups. Do we have Kiana Palacios starting, or do we have Ribeiro starting, or are we going to see kind of a mixture of that formation we saw where Ribeiro was the starting striker and Kiana was floating right behind her? What do you think, AJ?
All right, so starting on goalkeeper, you have Renata Mascherli. Your back four consists of Karen Luna, Jenny Farias, Justin Roger, and Monica Rodriguez. In midfield, you have Bonset on the left. You have Daniel Espinosa on the right. In midfield, I'm going to go with Zaida and Cascuevas. And up front, I'm going to have Maria Maleon, and I'm going to have Kiana Palacios up front.
Who's your front again? I'm sorry.
I have Kiana, and right behind her is going to be Maleon starting.
Maleon? Okay.
Maleon started the last two games, though, right?
She's been coming off the bench recently in the last two games.
I was looking at the past starting 11s. I found that really interesting that he started her the first two games, and I think the next two games he didn't start her. So I don't know. Maybe you put her in the front. I think he depending on because he has a system, like he doesn't stray too far from right. He has a solid defense. He kind of goes with the top three the same way. I think he might stick with them only because of that mental hurdle that they need to face. I think he's going to kind of tell them like, you know what, that was a blip. Let's try it again over here. And then, hopefully, like you said, maybe he makes some adjustments and sub some people out earlier than he did last game. But I think he might go with the same top three that he did last game.
And if we're going and assuming that same premises, then I think Eva Gonzalez gets to start as well. I don't see why she's been dropped. Honestly, I think she was by far one of our most well-rounded and most consistent player last season. And so I think that she needs to. I mean, I like what she brings to the table. I think she does a very good job holding the midfield. And do I see Saida at her level yet? Not necessarily. So I get why
you be dangerous outside the box too, which I think you're gonna have to try.
Yeah, definitely. We know Eva's got quite the long range, right? She scored some bangers before, so we know that she's capable of doing it again. And you're right, Amy. This might be a game where you have to utilize that kind of resource. So we'll have to wait and see. But interesting lineup nonetheless, AJ. I would prefer JD in goal, but she's no longer with us, so that's just me.
Okay. I prefer not speak. I prefer not speak.
Well, we'll see what Dylan says whenever he hears the podcast. But no, solid lineup, solid starting 11. And I think just go off and keep doing what you were doing in prior games, right? Building off
Mhm.
that foundation, going off the tactics that he wants to do. This is a side that is starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with the ball rather than playing that long ball united that we used to see so much back with Cuellar. So I like seeing them be a little bit more possessive, but they need to be a little bit more quicker on their passing and sometimes a little bit more daring. I don't
You
know if
saw
you
that. I
agree.
mean, you saw that kind of during the preseason. I think they had a really good preseason to start things off. I mean, granted, it's teams that are not necessarily at their level, so to speak. But I thought that at least the confidence wise, I thought same thing. It was going to be fast paced. It was going to be moving really quickly here and there. They've had those moments, or at least I think one of the things that has been such a huge advantage that we could aim to see in this game is the fact that Kiana makes those not like impossible goals, right? But she just like when she reacts pretty effectively. That you're able to get a goal here and there, and I think that that's going to be something that you're going to have to do against a dangerous Pachuca, who even if they're not finding their form quite yet, can come back and surprise you. So
Definitely. I mean, we talked about it. They've got players that can put you in a tight situation. I mean, look, one of their star forwards is going to be a player that we know oh so well, AJ, in Lucero. So who maybe hasn't reached her heights that she did with America in previous team like Leon and now with Pachuca. But it's not to say that she's not capable of, putting the ball in the back of the net. So we're going to have a very strong, solid defense, which I think you start off there, right? You start off with making sure that you're as tight and as solid as in the back, and then you build your way up from there. So I'm trying to see more communication from Janelli and from Jocelyn, right? There's times where I feel like they both get a little bit mixed up as to who's going to go there, who's going to push up, who covers. But if we can get an all well-rounded game, and I'm leaning more towards Janelli since she is the more, experienced player. She has a little bit more of that leadership quality. Then I'm looking at her to kind of be the voice in the back and saying, all right, look, this is how we're gonna go about it. You stay here, you move there, you cover here, you go, and like I said, if we can keep that tight formation at the back and make sure we leave no open space for them to kind of run into, then I think we should be fine, right? Keeping Pachuca at bay is critical because you don't want to give these forwards any real opportunity, right?
also, I think you have to factor in. I mean, it's impossible. I'm trying to find a way to be like, don't foul them, but it's impossible to not do that because they're also so effective off of free kicks. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are.
Oh,
If there's a strength Pachuca has compared to like any other team, it's the fact that like we just talked about their attacking options, but Salazar is so dangerous off of free kicks, and obviously Ocampo is too. Like
oh.
that's something that like you're mentioning, defensively and stuff that could come to bite them, which I hope doesn't. But against a Pachuca, you got to be careful for those two. Nothing outside the box. You got to close them off really well, and of course, you have to try to not foul them too close to your goal either.
Definitely. And look, I'm looking at Renata Maserati to be on her A game because those long range shots, I'm gonna need her to
Nothing is.
step up.
I have to say, I've said it before on this podcast. I have to say it again. Nothing is funnier than when Coach Dad Ivan comes out for every and any little goalkeeper mistake that happens. It's like it's not even like oh that was bad. It's literally like if he was a dad and he's like, why are you so far out of your box? I'm just like.
He's gonna be like that
What'd I do?
one dad where the goalkeeper, when the little kid was not moving, he had to give the shove through to make that say. I think he'd be the one to do that.
I would
Ivan's
definitely
at
be the
home
one
just
to do that.
also like moving while the game.
Moving along with
Yeah.
the players, like
I have my gloves on and
right
everything. I'm
behind
just
you,
like, come on,
ready,
I'm with
and
you.
just shouting at the goalie, left, right, dive, go, all that. I just picture him
Just
right
like-
now, just doing that, like.
Hey, what I do behind closed doors is with me, okay?
It's all right.
Right.
It's all right. It's practice for the community game we got going on.
It's practice. It's practice. Which
2 more weeks. Let's go.
2 more weeks. I'm going at it. I'm working, and so we'll see how it goes. Everyone will let you guys know whether or not I show up or if I live to my word. All right, that's for sure. So I know that I have to bring my A game. So, but point is, close them down. Don't give them the spaces, and try to not foul them in a dangerous position, right? If you're gonna foul them, keep it at the halfway line.
On their side.
On their side, that would be the most ideal place. As far as players go, I'm curious to see as to why you guys wouldn't start Ribeiro in this matchup, because I feel like she brought a little bit more to the side in the second half against Luca. We didn't get to see much of it in the Querétaro match because AJ, as you know, there wasn't a broadcast for a good couple of minutes, and so we missed her goal. We missed a lot of stuff, but
the joys of Liga MX Femenil.
I was so tempted, just like when Mill did that one time, did some drawing like with the play with the stick figures. I was so tempted. I'm like, picture this. I was like, how did Ribeiro score the goal? Bicycle kick, halfway line, header. What is it? And then they showed it like I had to like.
It's simple. We need to find a community member in every single team at every single place that's like, hey, you're gonna be at the game. If we don't have a transmission, you got to stream it for the culture. Like you got to do it.
They were actually doing it.
Community.
Mel did that for the San Luis Pachuca game. Like nobody was able to find a stream, so she just started, and then you just see in the stands like the like whatever like popcorn lady or the concession stand.
Hey, sometimes the things we gotta do for this league. Sometimes, right? Got to go above and beyond. So, well, we'll see. I mean, fingers crossed we'll have a stream for this one.
But as far as Ribeiro goes, though, I think I'm not going to say like she's not. I just think Harrington's going to try to play like the mental hurdle thing. Like he's going to try to like get his players back after this loss. And I think she could be a super effective super sub, though. Like you said, like she's really good. Be fresh feet. If it doesn't work out between any of the three that start, and see what can be done. Obviously, do it early enough where it can make an impact, and hopefully there's no a goal hasn't been conceded by the team or anything like that. But I think I do think that there's a lot of potential in her. I liked what I've seen so far from her.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. That's like the first thing that I thought about. Like she's a super sub just because the amount of shots she's just able to get off within like minutes. It's just like she's hungry for a goal, and that's one of those things. As long as Harrington does the substitution correctly at the correct time, when we're desperately in need of a goal, you can always slide Ribeiro in. Just take someone, either if it has to be in midfield to go with two forwards up front or just the same formation. Just take someone out, whoever's behind the player that's in front. But all in all, like Ribeiro, really good things from her. I hope to see her score more goals for America Femenil because she's definitely got a knack at goal, especially what she did in Norway and back in college. So I can't wait to see what else she can do for this America side under Harrington.
I agree. I think she can be a good super sub, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if she does start because, like I mentioned, she brings a little bit of extra, dynamic up front, and we'll see what Harrington decides at the end of the day. But also, one thing to note, AJ, no blue for this game after she saw red in that matchup, which was a little bit harsh, but hey.
Oh, that was not red. And this is why we need VAR in this league. Because I cannot understand how
we need better officiating in this league. Like VAR with bad officiating is just bad.
It's pick your poison. It's pick your poison, especially if you're gonna have referees like that just don't know their cause. I mean, hey, I finally got to use that tweet. Blue sees red. I was so tempted. Like, yes, my time is now. I'm going to. I'm sorry, blue, but like if you're
also she's darker blue now, right?
Yes.
It's darker blue as well.
I mean, that's one of the good things I got from the stream that you wouldn't see maybe on through the edit. You got to see a close up of players that are on the sideline. I was like, hey, I can make a gif out of this. Cool. So maybe all things aren't too bad after all.
Well, she saw red, so she won't be part of this matchup. But it should be an interesting, game overall for you guys. Tactically speaking, what is the key for America to walk away with a victory here?
I honestly think you're not going to. I mean, you haven't seen it, right? I think that's one of the things that you're saying, right? It's not just like kick the ball, try to cross it, hope for prayer that somebody capitalizes. I think they're going to have to keep that at a minimum as much as possible. You're going to have to play the ball on the ground as you're going to have to connect. Like you're going to have to do that a lot more because Pachuca is an intelligent team, regardless of who the manager is, regardless of what they're going through. They will find a way to play to their ability, and I think that That's what I'm saying. I think those three are smart enough to do that. I think Kiana's talented in being able to capitalize on those really random goals, but that are still super strategic in their approach. And then, Montes is a very good player down the line, and Danny can be a very dangerous player down the line. So I think you're just going to have to get the best from them in this game, especially after what happened last week. And, from there, just move forward. And, of course, keep it compact as much as possible in the back.
AJ?
Yeah, really, just like what Amy said, it's like your three musketeers right then. That's like your entire offense. Bring it to them. You just gotta communicate and work together, and that's the case. They can definitely bring some goals that America desperately need to get that victory against Pachuca.
Definitely, I agree with you guys. I think, America Femenil is going to just have to play the simple ball, right? Simple soccer. Keep it on the ground, 1-2 touch passing. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing to do in a game, right? Is to keep it as simple as that. But again, this is a side that needs to start feeling more confident with the ball. So being as possessive as possible will be a key factor, not just in this game, but for the season overall, to keep, building on that fundamentals of Harrington's kind of quote unquote style that he's trying to imprint on these players. And so we'll see whether or not they're capable of doing it against, a very good Pachuca side who may not be looking like it on paper, but we know any minute now could wake up and could potentially be the powerhouse that we know that they're capable of being. So we'll have to wait as to how the ladies go out there, but hopefully they're willing to revert that blip and bring back home 3 points. But with that said, I'm curious to hear your guys' prediction as to what the result is going to be like. AJ, I'm gonna throw it to you first because you jinxed us on last Monday. So I'm trying to see what is going to be your scoreline now for this Monday's game against Pachuca.
2-1 America. Pachuca are gonna score first, but we're gonna make the comeback at the Hidalgo.
Okay, I don't know if I believe you on that, AJ. I don't know if I believe you.
You don't believe
Amy?
in anything. Don't in anything.
I went to go check my quiniela really quickly so I don't contradict myself. I went with an America victory, and I also want to go with the 2-1, but I'm gonna go a little bit more exciting. I'm gonna say a 3-2. I think it's gonna be maybe
I don't know.
Ooh,
goal fest.
2017
That's a lot of
era.
goals.
The
It's a lot of
2017
goals, but
era.
I think we're overdue for like a good goal fest. We get them plenty in the Liga MX Femenil, but I don't think we've gotten one quite from America in that capacity. So I think Pachuca is going to find some rhythm. I don't think they go scoreless in this game, and I think America is something's going to click because I think they do have good momentum aside from this Toluca defeat, and I think that they're going to come out with the victory. I do. Like you said, right? On paper, Pachuca is a much better team, but I think if you're looking at the trajectory of this season, America is just a little bit better, and that's what's going to get them over to get the 3 points.
All right, I like it. Well, I'm gonna be as conservative as I can be. I'm not gonna be as adventurous as you guys and predict
0-0
goals.
tie.
I'm gonna go with a 1-0 victory for America. I think we can keep it tight at the back. I think that we can get that one goal, like you mentioned, Kiana getting herself in those oddly positions that for some reason find the back of the net, and I think that we can just kind of weather the storm. I think it will have to be kind of something like that. Not to say that it will be a pretty win, but 3 points is 3 points, especially at a place like Hidalgo. Never an easy place for America to go and visit. So we'll see. Who will be right? Who knows? Probably not. None of us. This podcast tends to not have good predictions.
Well, AJ will have cursed us at the end of the day, but when in doubt, we'll blame
When
AJ.
when in doubt, hashtag todo es culpa de Alexis.
I mean, hey, at least we ain't betting the house. I mean, hey, Caliente. Now they're starting to bet on everything in women's
Don't
soccer.
remind me of betting. I went to Vegas like 2 weeks ago or whatever.
So no betting the house here.
Nobody in the house. Yes. No, we can't risk the house at this point, AJ. It's Pachuca. So, but that is going to be an interesting game. You guys can catch that live at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. AJ, is this game going to be live on Through the End, or are we going to have another one of those things where we're just
No, this is an away game, so you're
Fox
probably
Sports, buddy. Get the YouTube out, Eric. You need the VPNs. It's time to start exploring.
All right, looks like
we don't condone any illegal streams, but we also don't
shun them either.
We don't shun them, so our DMs are open is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, so we will get you guys covered with a link if we ever have any. And Yeah, so you guys can catch that game live. And for whatever reason you guys are going to be at work, you guys can't watch the game, you guys can catch it live minute by minute. AJ's going to have you guys covered over at the Eagle Eye Podcast. And you guys can follow that throughout the whole way. If he can, which I'm sure he will, he always finds a way, he'll make some interesting gifts to put out for you guys to enjoy. So should be an interesting game, should be an interesting matchup. And if you guys have anything else to add on, I think we're pretty much wrapped up here.
No, I think we're good. What's the prediction for the Liga MX community game, Ivan? How are we choosing team? It's okay. We'll talk about this off the air.
Yeah, we can sort it out.
I'm getting kind of excited though. I am. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm going for a nice 4-4. It's a 4-4 draw.
That's admirable.
Yeah. Everyone's too tired to score that last goal.
Everybody's. I know.
Everyone just time wasted. Sit down. Let the ref just call it out.
I can't wait for Washed FC to just get together and just show the.
That's how it's gonna be. But if that is all that we have, then we'll pretty much wrap it up here. Amy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, talking your expertise. Where can they find you? I know we have your ad there, but for those listening, where can they find you?
Yeah, of course. You can find me at Azteca Amelia with 3 A's at the end on all social media platforms. The guy's doing an amazing job with America Femenil, but if you want to have more information on Liga MX Femenil in general, go ahead and follow the Liga MX FEMENG hashtag, or we have it all covered on FootMX Nation as well.
Definitely. And where can they hear more about this on the audio version of it? I know you guys have a podcast as well.
Yes. Adriana and I, my good friend Adriana and I, we have the Our Football podcast, and that gives you a more comprehensive look at the league in general.
So definitely, you guys want to check them out, get some more, idea of what's going on in and around the league, not just America. So you guys can be all covered on in that aspect. AJ, anything else to add on before we wrap it all up?
No, that's about it.
All right, I'm gonna need you to do like a whole limpia before the game starts on Monday. Okay, guys, I can't afford to lose another 3 points to another bad tweet. I'm just kidding, AJ. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, man. But like I've mentioned, this wouldn't be a possibility without you. So thank you so much, AJ. We'll be back next week to talk all things America Femenil. We'll recap what happened against Pachuca, and we'll look ahead into the home game that is against Atlético San Luis. So it should be an interesting one. We'll see if we can revert the blip at the Azteca once again. With that said, thank you again, Amy, for coming on. Thank you to everyone listening. Thank you to everyone that came out and joined. Ivan, I'm talking to you. Everyone's gonna think that I'm talking to myself now that I said that, but it's fine. For those that weren't here, there's a good friend, Ivan, not me. Another person named Ivan was here on the chat. But with that said, you guys have a wonderful time. Take care. Please wear your masks. And as always, Arriba la América. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was another production of the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 source for all things Club America in English. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Eagle Eye Podcast and get all the latest news and coverage. And subscribe to our podcast wherever it is you may listen.